Hey guys, my name is Amelia Cedar. Um, I'm having to redo this presentation and redo the whole video because I recorded everything under my high school student email, and so no one has access to my video or my presentation, so I had to redo all of it. So just bear with me. My nose is stopped up, and it's not a great time for me to be presenting this, but yeah, okay. Okay, so I chose mouse for my project, and the title of my presentation is The Danger of Book Banning on Generations to Come. So I'm going to be doing a short introduction of mouse. I'm going to be talking about the challenge, the reasons people challenge mouse, the issue with book banning, and then the research that I did that backs it all up. So Mouse, written by Art Spiegelman, was published in various forms and places from 1980 to 1991. So Mouse was first just like a little strip of images, like kind of like a little comic strip, and then it was put into like magazines, and then eventually we got the novel that we all read. But the novel specifically presents the interviews Art had with his father and covers Vladek Spiegelman's Holocaust experiences through graphics and captions. Mouse contains themes of racism, guilt, trauma, and memory. So what's so special about this novel? This novel, to me, is revolutionary because it's full of symbolic graphics and images, and in the use of Art's drawings rather than simple words provides readers a way to deeply understand and relate what they're reading to broader issues and broader topics. Okay, so the challenge. Okay, so four main reasons that people voted to ban mouse. The first one is going to be inappropriate words. So mouse contains multiple words that are generally considered inappropriate, especially for younger audiences. There's sexual content. There's a scene in Mouse that shows a nude woman, Art's mother, lying dead in her bathtub. Racism. So the Holocaust in general was just a racially motivated genocide, but there's also a specific scene where Vladek is just making very racist comments towards a person that he sees. And then vulgarity. A lot of stories in the novel include sickening and harsh deaths. There's torture, or just other intense content that could be hard for readers to digest. Okay, so the McMinn County decision was one of the big cases where they decided to ban mouse. So one very popular removal of mouse from the school system took place in McMinn County, Tennessee. In January of 2022, the McMinn County School District came to an agreement to remove mouse from its 8th grade curriculum. An uprising of arguments over book censorship came from this decision. One school board member viewed the teaching of mouse as a way to normalize nudity, sexuality, and vulgarity in curriculum. All of those four big things that I just talked about. But one teacher that was on the other side of it said that she felt like her freedom of speech was being limited while others was being encouraged and elevated. And other people were able to speak their minds about banning mouse, but she felt like limited to what she could say about just like her freedom of speech and her thoughts on it. So the issue of book banning, why is it relevant? Okay, so the issue of book banning. The nature of book banning is driven by the desire to censor content that could potentially offend someone. However, this same desire is what limits valuable information from being shared. In some cases, it may be appropriate to censor content that certain age groups are allowed to see, such as unnecessarily vulgar or inappropriate books in young audiences. In most cases, however, banning books is simply a way to limit freedom of speech, sugarcoat a topic, and or satisfy a parental or political demand. Firstly, authors spend their time and a lot of times a lot of their money writing books to express themselves and tell their stories, but that expression is limited when books are banned. Secondly, certain topics are hard to face, such as the Holocaust, but for numerous reasons they must be talked about, and I'll go into that deeper. Lastly, the demand of parents and or school officials puts pressure on school systems to ban books without deep reason in order to keep the peace between people. So a lot of times school officials might have pressure from parents to get rid of certain curriculum or get rid of certain books, and instead of finding good reason and really investigating into it, they just want to keep the peace, avoid any kind of lawsuit or issues like that. So they just do it anyway, and they fall to that peer pressure, I guess. Okay, so the issue of book banning, specifically Maus. So when books like Maus are banned for their content, the problem is that less people are seeing the harshness and the realness of the novel's realities. Lots of things that have happened throughout history are upsetting, they're tragic, frightening, and morally wrong. But the simple issue with book banning is that without facing the truth of these histories, we're much more likely to repeat them. And so nonfiction books specifically are important to the understanding of history, for history cannot be told through the mouths of witnesses forever. Thankfully, Art had Vladik to tell his stories before he died, but it can't be like that for everything, and it won't be like that forever. So even realistic fiction provides a look into what could possibly happen and or what could have happened in the past. It may not have happened, but it's very possible it's realistic. Furthermore, the effects that come with tragic history are numerous. Survivor's guilt and generational trauma are two major issues that come from people who have been part of certain things in history, and I'll go further into those when I get to my research. Both of these things leave lasting effects on the people that are affected by them, and they are definitely not to be taken lightly. So this is a quote from Art Spiegelman. He did an interview with, I think it was the Washington Post. He said, "It's a real warning sign of a country that's yearning for a return to authoritarianism." And he was talking about book banning. Okay, this is just a little thing I added in. So history is not fixable, changeable, or reversible, but it is real, and it does have a real impact on people, and it can be preventable when we're talking about repeating it and letting it happen again. Okay, so this is going to be the research that I did and just what went into this whole project. So my three questions, my three main ideas were: what are transgenerational trauma and survivor's guilt? Why is Holocaust education important, and is it fading as years pass? And just Holocaust memory too. And how does book banning disregard certain areas of education? Okay, so first we're going to talk about trauma and guilt. Generational trauma is the effect of one's trauma on their posterity, the people that come after them. Survivor's guilt comes from being a trauma survivor or a witness. You may not have been a part of it, but you saw it, you heard about it, it happened in your family. So the effects of generational trauma and survivor's guilt vary from family to family, person to person, situation to situation. Everyone has a different story. However, they also sometimes go hand in hand with each other. For example, in Maus, it's clear that Artie is affected by the simple fact that he was unable to experience the Holocaust like his father was in the same way. This guilt went right along with the anxiety, which also could have come from Vladik's intense and anxious demeanor that Artie had about portraying Vladik's stories correctly. In many cases, generational trauma comes with physical and mental medical issues. For some people, that may include anxiety, depression, and even conversion disorder, which is more of a physical issue, but it affects your motor skills. But there have been other people, however, that have experienced physical effects such as migraines, insomnia, and heart palpitations. In any case, both generational trauma and survivor's guilt have a deep and long-lasting effect on the people who experience them. So, Holocaust memory. The Holocaust occurred during World War II, and it was a mass genocide of the Jews in Europe at the time. When learning about world history, it's very likely that one will cover the topic of the Holocaust, but it has been proven that a deep understanding of the event is becoming less common. A study done in the late 2010s showed that most adults, especially millennials, which they defined in the article as 18 to 34 years old, lack basic knowledge of the Holocaust, including the name of the most infamous concentration camp, Auschwitz. It's so important to keep the real stories of the Holocaust alive and not just the nicer versions, for if we do this, we can prevent it from happening again. And then this was just a little quote that I came up with when I was doing all this research. And I just said, forgotten history equals repeated history. If we forget what happened, it's bound to happen again. So education. Banning books limits the amount of information that students get to take in and read. Some books provide valuable historical information, but are banned for how harsh they are. So the goal of education is to bring students in, teach them as much as possible, and release them so that they'll be able to function in the real world. In one instance where mouse was banned in a school, a student said this: "They're trying to hide history from us." This relates to the fact that part of being an adult is being educated on political and social issues so that they can vote for continuation or change in policies. If students are not taught the effects and truths of history, they'll not be able to base their decisions and their votes on anything. If they don't know how something has affected something in the past, how will they know to not vote for that so that it will happen again, or so that it won't happen again in the future? So, in conclusion, the issue with book banning is that it feeds into the fading of traumatic histories that cause long-lasting effects on people, for it increases the risk of repeating such histories, such events. And then here's my bibliography with all of my sources. Thank you guys for watching. I'm so sorry that I had to do it like this and that I sound so stuffed up, but yeah.